Hey there, and welcome to the Confident Woman Podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Brooks. Join me as I sit down and chat with co hosts, friends, and carefully curated guests and talk about all the things that empower you to become your best and most confident self. So let's get started. Hey there, and welcome back. So, today we are talking about a topic that I think is so relevant and so needed, especially in today's world where we might be at a place where we're trying to figure things out and grasping for control or that next thing or chasing something. But the question is, what is it that we're ultimately after? And I think for me, if I had to answer this question, and this is something that I've been thinking long and hard about for quite some time, and even more so, I find myself on in this next season, this next chapter, and that is what I call finding freedom. But first, freedom. What is it? It's something we all want, right? So, whether it's freedom in our careers, our time, our finances, or even in how we see ourselves, we're all searching for that sense of release and control. So, that feeling, what I think is that sense of security, because when we're feeling secure, that's that power of, okay, I've got this. This is freedom. This is in my hands, in my control. But is it really? And so that feeling of being untethered from having any expectations, any obligations, or anything that keeps us stuck in life. And that's kind of the way that we could consciously create, but sometimes we don't realize that we're inadvertently unconsciously creating because we're giving power to something that we have zero control over, right? I mean, we can only impact or affect our lives to some gravity, some point, but beyond that is out of our control. And when things feel like they're out of control, we tend to tighten that grip, thinking, okay, I have to do this, I have to do that. And essentially, we're just tightening the grip on something that will essentially grip us back and keep us in a place. So it's it's kind of thinking if we could do this, then get that. But how many times has that ever worked out in our lives? And so that really prompts us to ask ourselves, what does it actually mean to find freedom? And more importantly, how do we get there? There meaning, what is the place or what is the thing or what are you trying to achieve? And that's the unique journey of individual finding freedom. So I want to take you back to a time in my own life that I had felt anything but free. And I had found myself in the place where I was just caught up in chasing perfection. I was constantly feeling like I needed to do more, I needed to achieve more, I had to be more. And it was this constant strive and chasing that kept me feeling so stuck, feeling so, oh man, it was just a place where no matter how hard I tried, I constantly failed. And that failure kept me in this loop and it became my narrative, which essentially became my part of my identity. That I started speaking that into my life, saying, I am a failure. I can't succeed. Everything I try to do, I fail. And I had such a negative connotation to the word failure and my own limits and my own identity and beliefs about what I'm capable and qualified for that it left me in this constant cycle of please perform and perfect. That I was constantly chasing that thing that I was hoping could set me free, but I didn't realize that that freedom was ultimately that power I had within me. And that was the quest, that was the journey. So I talk further about that, obviously, through my book, Chasing Perfection, A Journey to Healing, Fitness, and Self-Love. So it's not just about one thing, because I don't think if we look at our lives, we don't just have one thing. We are not one thing. We didn't have one circumstance, one situation, one example, one big catastrophic something. Something just as one didn't get us to where we are today. And so I share that because as I look back at my life and my story, I had to set up the standard for myself. And I realized that that standard was so unrealistic. And I thought that by meeting it, that I would find ultimately peace, fulfillment, and freedom. But instead, what I found was complete burnout. I found exhaustion and I found myself trapped in a cycle of never ending enough. That enoughness cycle. Is it enough? Therefore, am I enough? And so when we tie that back into failure, failure then becomes the byproduct of our efforts. And if we choose to exude effort into something and the result is failure, what does that mean? It's that cycle, right? And so I just found myself going down this path that was not conducive or bettering me as an individual. And everything that I was trying to do, I just kept finding myself further and further away, which then just kind of put that fire in me that, if you're feeling behind in anything, it's this double effort that we have to compound to catch up to speed so that we're not further and further and further behind. And that's where I found myself. So when I realized that I was chasing that freedom and the freedom wasn't about doing more, but in turn, it was about letting go of what's holding you back. And that on top of identity. So I had to ask myself, who am I? What's holding me back? But even more so, the power of why. Why we do what we do. Why do we have to feel this pressure to be something or to do something or to have something? Asking ourselves why could really bring that clarity. And so when I was asking myself why, after realizing what was holding me back, I began to understand that everything that I needed, I already had it within me. I already knew that I was enough. I already knew that for me to imagine something would have had to have come from an experience, and an experience is something I have already lived and walked through. So, meaning I've already been called, equipped, and qualified to achieve or be or have whatever that looks like in your life. And so as I'm realizing this, that I've already have enough right here, right now, without needing to prove anything to myself or having that endless chase to do more and those nonstop, endless to-do lists, or really even this expectation of what others want or expect of you. Because sometimes we can just let in all these external factors diminish our own perceived value of worth, which is our enoughness, but it can also become evidence to support why we don't believe that we're worthy. So this, I know I could take this episode in so many different tangents, but I really want to harness on what it means to be set free from all those beliefs, lies, limitations, stories, experiences, mishaps, misfortunes, all the stuff that will hold us back. And so when I started on this journey and realizing that I wanted freedom, the freedom to just be me, but what did that look like and who was I to be free? So finding freedom starts with a mindset shift. And it's all about recognizing that you have the power to choose how you spend your time, how you show up in your life, and how you define success. For me, that shift didn't happen overnight. It took time, it took reflection, and honestly, a lot of unlearning. Like I said, I had to go to places that I didn't know so that I can now know so I could do differently and move forward in a place that was more empowering and help build that rapport and self-esteem. I had to take a step back and ask myself, what is truly important to me? Now that I think about the shoulds and what it could be, the importance started to rise to the top. And what I realized, what was important was not about what others expect from me, but what is truly aligned with who I am and the life I want to create for me. So I flipped that script. It wasn't about them. I had to now reclaim that power and make it about me. And that's where I found freedom. Freedom is in releasing control of what can and can't be so that you can reclaim that power to really internalize all that is within you is that peace, that fulfillment, and that freedom. So how do we start this journey to freedom? Well, I want to share a few steps that have helped me, and I believe that they can help you too. First, release the pressure to be perfect. As I said, perfection doesn't exist, and it will keep us in that perpetual cycle of what I call self-abuse. When we are constantly chasing the please, perform, and perfect, It's exhausting, it's tiring, it's not realistic, it's not sustainable, and it sure as heck does not exist in a way that our expectations will meet the outcomes. And so when there's that big gap, there's that discontentment and disappointment, which we always fall in. And that plays that narrative loop of who we are, how we beat ourselves up verbally, the evidence that we seek to support, and so on. And so when we realize that perfection is one of the biggest barriers to freedom, we often feel like we can't slow down and we can't find rest until everything is perfect. Again, because there's that pressure, that anxiety now that we're feeling further off path, we're feeling further behind, we're watching others do the things that we want, we're sitting on the sideline, just stuck and wondering how, how do other people seem to have this easier, effortless life? Why are they able to achieve? Why are they able to have? Why are they able to be? And we start falling victim to that comparison trap. So I say all this with caution because as we need to really refine and define our mindset, and that's why I go back and what I said, it's a mindset shift. So realizing that perfection doesn't exist is one thing logically that can make sense, but in our heart, does it align with where we're going in the actions and choices that we're making today? So the reality is, again, like I said, perfection does not exist. It's that illusion that keeps us trapped. And my advice, something I've learned that I'm sharing with you, is to give yourself grace. Perfection, again, does not exist. We need to focus on progress, not perfection, because the progress is what will move you forward. And what is progress? For simple, the most basic fundamental way that I could say this is to become a better version than you were yesterday. It's quite simple. We don't need to have huge metrics, data, KPI, analytics, record tracking and habit tracking and all the stuff, right? Those are tools. But the simplest way to measure progress is if you can assess your day in and out and something that did or didn't go well today, you now know an area of improvement that you can work on tomorrow. And tomorrow, your goal is to be better than you were yesterday. Just like tomorrow will be the outcome of what you expect as of today. So small micro steps, day by day, little by little, step by step. That is progress. And progress compounded over time yields results because that's consistency. Consistency leads to progress. Secondly, set boundaries. Setting boundaries around your time, your energy, and your mind space. This is huge. One of the most freeing things that you can do is to protect your time, your energy by saying no to the things that drain you or do not align with your values. Again, say no to the things that drain you, that suck your time, and do not align with your values. Why I say values is because when we know who we are and what we stand for, it is harder for us to bend and sway and go with the flow and think that others know the way, because your values will hold true to your identity, and your identity is who and what you become, right? Stick with me here. This is going to be probably one of my favorite episodes because I could talk about this all day, every day. And I'm bringing you into this space because, listen, to be honest, I go through seasons that sometimes I have to take pages out of my own notebooks. I have to take pages out of my own book and pages out of other people's books because sometimes I just also need that reminder because I am not perfect. And even though I think that I learned a lesson yesterday, last week, last month, last year, guess what? Same lesson will appear in a different state, a different fashion, a different chapter, right? How many times we find ourselves, we're like, man, why does this story feel so familiar? Why do I feel like I'm in the same movie, just a different character, different setting, a different cast? Because the lesson is still applicable. We still need to learn something for us to move on. And so, again, protecting that time, your energy, and preserving your values. So I say all this to put an emphasis on this is not any attack on being selfish or selfless, but it's about being intentional. If you're constantly giving your time away to things that don't serve you, you're not going to have the energy to focus on what truly matters. Next, I want to emphasize that we prioritize our health and well being. Again, health and well being. This means our mental, our emotional, our spiritual, and our physical health and well being. You can't pour from an empty cup. We've all heard that saying. And you certainly can't experience true freedom if you're constantly running on fumes and living in the past. We can't fix what happened yesterday. We have no control over what's happening tomorrow. The only thing that we have certain is the present moment, the here and now. And this is where we get to define our future. And this is where we get to let go of our past. So as we find ourselves straddling both our past and our future, we wonder, what action steps can we do today in the present moment to set us up for success from here on out? Another point is rest, recovery, and self-care. None of those are luxuries. They are not something that you do once you achieve or when you have time or when you make yourself a priority or when. It's none of that. It is a necessity. For every season that you are in, there's going to be a time when you drive fast and a time when you are slowing down, and you have to rest, you have to recover. And and I jokingly say this, but as a professional seasoned burned out junkie, yes, that's me. Been there way too many times. And that's why I feel like if anyone's here has the rights to talk about this stuff, it is me. And I don't say that as with a badge of honor or anything. Believe me, it sucks. And it sucks really, 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 really bad when you get to those lows of lows and then you find yourself in that repetitive cycle again. So having been there too many times than I want to admit, I'm just sharing this from the utmost place of love and care, not only for myself, but for you guys, because I never want to see somebody go down a path that I have chosen, whether directly or indirectly, but that path had led to a place that I don't ever want to go, and I don't want you guys to go there either. So I say that all with caution. So taking that time for yourself to rest, recover, and focus on your self-care, the needs that your body and your mind and your spirit 1000% need. Again, focusing on mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical health and well-being. It's all part of who we are, right? Because without taking care of you, the number one denominator in this entire life that we're living, what good is the outcome with the primary is falling apart at the seams, barely holding it together? What good are we to our family? What good are we to our team? What good are we to the impact and the difference that we want to make in this world when we're struggling to do that in our own selves? So I encourage you to connect with your faith, whatever that looks like for you. If it's your higher power, if it's the source within. For me, it's God, having that relationship with Jesus and connecting. That's something very personal to me, but I believe that everyone has a personal connection to who and what they choose to believe. Those things will sustain over time, and they will also be a way for you to have courage and confidence to know that you're not alone on this journey. Fourth, trust the process. Finding freedom isn't a one-time decision. It's an ongoing practice. There are days when you feel like you just want to give up because you don't feel that you're making strides. And there will be days when you feel like you suck. You're stuck. You don't feel like you're moving anywhere. And yes, it's not a good place to be in, but I don't want you to beat yourself up when you're feeling stuck or you kind of get in that, I suck, I can't get there, blah, 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 right? Honor those feelings, but don't allow those feelings to honor and encompass who you are. Honor those feelings to be felt, but knowing that those circumstances and situations do not define you. They're just moments of timeouts. Those are just moments of obstacles and challenges, and they're always there to teach us something. So what is the one thing that you need to learn during this period of being stuck? What are these life lessons trying to teach you? What can you learn about yourself? What can you learn about the situation, right? Really start asking yourself those internal questions because it's never external. It's never about that thing didn't happen or the result didn't come to fruition because of X, Y, and Z. A lot of times it has to come from where we may have made an indirect decision or we didn't know better, right? There's a lot of variables that can play into this equation, but it's never, again, one thing and it's never about the external, right? So when we look at it from this analogy where, if you're constantly changing the bandage on a wound, it's not about the wound or the bandage, it's about the ability for it to heal. And we need to address what's underneath. And so that's the stuff that's lying dormant within us. And so I say all that again to encourage you that when you're feeling stuck, to just do that, just feel. And feeling is okay. That freedom that we're after, that's the freedom is in giving yourself permission to grow and go at your own pace and embrace the journey with all of its ups and downs. You will experience them all. There's no smooth, linear line to anything we want in life. And lastly, celebrate the small wins. Like I said about progress, it's step by step, day by day, little by little. And each time we take that step forward, we're finding freedom in that journey. So whether it's saying no to that extra commitment or taking time out for yourself or simply choosing to think differently about your situation is worth celebrating. Freedom is found in those small daily decisions. Again, the intentional act and practice of self-care. So don't wait for something big to happen where you just, okay, I'm free, I'm here, I've arrived. That's not how it happened. And that does not happen in every situation because listen, we've all arrived, we wouldn't even be here, right? We have to acknowledge that what is happening right now is exactly where you need to be and exactly of how things need to be because there's always something, a lesson and a blessing to pan out here. So in that happening of right now, in those everyday choices that you're making, you're one step closer to finding your own personal freedom. So quick recap here. The few steps that have really helped me on this journey was releasing the pressure to be perfect, setting boundaries around my time, my energy, and the values, honoring the values that align with me and who I am. Next, prioritizing your health and well-being. After that, trusting the process. And then lastly, it's celebrate the small wins. So every step that you take is one step closer to finding that personal freedom. So here is my challenge for you this week. Take one area of your life where you feel restricted or trapped and ask yourself, how can I bring more freedom into this area? Maybe it's about letting go of a commitment that no longer serves you. Maybe it's shifting your mindset about your work or your worth. Or maybe it's simply giving yourself permission to rest. Whatever it is, start there. Take one step towards freedom and see how that feels. Give yourself that space and permission. As I said, these are not luxuries, these are necessities. And a necessity is a matter of life or death, right? And when I say life or death, it could kill our spirit, it could kill our joy, it could kill our inner peace, it can destroy how we think about ourselves, about others, right? So all of these things are an attack on who we are because of the pressures and demands of what we have placed upon ourselves, directly or indirectly. So take control and take inventory of how you're showing up for you, and you'll see a direct correlation of how you show up for others. So again, shifting your mindset and giving yourself that permission. So as you start to take that one step towards freedom and seeing how it feels, I promise you, once you start, you'll begin to feel lighter, more aligned, and more in control of your life. And I think that is what we're ultimately after is, yes, we want control. And what does control bring? It brings peace, clarity, and freedom. and freedom is possible for you. You don't have to wait until everything is perfect or until you've achieved a certain level of success. You could choose to opt into freedom right now, in this very moment, by deciding to let go of what's holding you back and embrace what's most important to you. And that starts with turning inward and knowing who you are. So I hope today's episode has been encouraging. I hope that sharing a few tips and life lessons, and again, I'm pulling this from my own playbook because, like I said, man, when you are just sitting in time out and you realize that you're the one calling the shots, you're also the ref and you're also the coach and you're also the leading role in everything you do, that it isn't about somebody else. It's about how you're showing up for you, what you can let go of, what you can do to reclaim that power, your time, and your energy. Because all of that is self preservation, which will set you up for sustainable success, however, success looks for you. And again, it's not about this achievements, accolades, or awards. Those are byproducts of what it feels like to sustain and achieve success from a place of purpose, fulfillment, freedom, and more importantly, aligning with your core integral values and identity. So, again, I hope this resonates with you, and I encourage you to take action this week because at the end of the day, you had the power to create your own story, and finding freedom is all about reclaiming that power. So, thanks again for tuning in. And if this resonates, be sure to reach out, let me know. And if there's ever anything you're just like, hey, I'm struggling with this, or I can really use some help or encouragement, shoot me a message, chime into the Confident Woman community group. We're here for you. This is not a solo battle, and even though it's a personal journey, we're not meant to do life alone. This is a collective effort because we are all walking on a path that is more similar than it is different, and we're all on this journey to become a better version of ourselves. So make sure that you are staying true to who you are and keep moving towards your own version of personal freedom. All right. Thanks again for listening. Take care.
Hey there. Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode of the Confident Woman podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode as much as I did, please be sure to like, subscribe, and leave us a review. Thanks again for listening.